And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cyrus Webb Presents here on Amazon Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again. Welcome, you guys who are tuning in on Amazon Live. Appreciate you all being with us for our programming today. And we have a repeat guest that's joining us today. She really is someone who needs no introduction at this point. Dr. Velma Bagby is back with us. We're going to be discussing her book, the novel, The Catch No One Wants. But also, we have the homework basket, which is her nonfiction. About that a bit, as well as work when it comes to relationships as well. Those who are new to us here on Amazon Live, welcome to you. If you guys are not doing so already, make sure you guys hit that follow button. That way you can stay connected with all of our programming that we have here on Amazon Live. For those who are tuning in on Facebook, on YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn, we welcome you guys there as well. Make sure you guys do, if you guys will click the link that you'll see with this broadcast, that will take you to Amazon, so you can make sure that you're following Dr. Velma as well. Dr. Velma, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
Well, look, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. And, this has been so much fun for me, actually, as we've been having these conversations, because for one, we're diving into different elements of your work. Hello to you, Deborah. Good to be able to see you over there on the Facebook side, but also to be able to talk about the work you've done so much. And there is an interesting correlation, and we were talking about this briefly before we went on, and that is the correlation between faith and relationships. What has it been like for you to be a part of that conversation with people when it comes to the role of their faith when it deals with relationships?
Because I don't see it as separate. I don't see faith and relationships as something that's separate. Even in our own faith, it's built around a relationship with God. And that's the very first relationship we should have, is our relationship with Him. And that's kind of the foundation of my conversations when we're looking at building a relationship with a husband or a wife. We have to have Him in the process. We have to have Him at the center of it. So that very first relationship is our relationship with Him. And even in Scripture, He encourages us to have relationships with other believers, other people. We're to love God, we're to love ourselves, and we're to love others. So relationships is centered around our faith. And so it's not difficult, because I don't see it as something separate.
Got you. That is a really good point. And it is something to think about. As you were talking, I thought about even in our other relationships, even not talking about a spouse, there are elements, of course, that also do play into our faith. Trust, being able to believe in people, working together with people. So again, I can see that connection being there. So I guess an obvious question would be, Dr. Velma, have you always known that? Have you always known that the way you looked at your faith would also determine the way you...
Well, I applied it in business. I always look for God to cause the right people to cross my path. I mean, you have a lot of motivational messages around that. And I always wait for God to cause those that I'm supposed to connect with to cross my path. So when I meet someone, I'm also exploring why God is allowing me to meet this person. Sometimes it's about doing something in that moment. Sometimes it's about building long-term work relationships. Even in my own business, I do not just go out to find someone to connect to. I talk to those I know. I trust the people I have within my tribe, a tribe of associates, and I trust what they say. I trust who they refer. And so I rely on that. If it's somebody I know that knows that individual, then I'll trust that. So I try not to step out there to get to know someone I don't know anything about. But it's always based on those relationships I've built and what those people recommend for me.
Yeah. Let's talk about what you've been able to do as an author, because I want to say, for those who are tuning in on the Amazon Live side, the book I'm holding in my hand right here, The Catch No One Wants, is the one that's featured right now in the carousel. There's a carousel of products either beneath us or on the side of us. The other book you guys will see there is a homework basket. I'm going to feature it for a moment here. The Catch No One Wants, the homework basket. We're going to get into that a little bit later. But also you'll see other books by Dr. Velma as well. So I want to talk about that for you, because you've been able to, through fiction and nonfiction now, be able to discuss relationships, even your own. My 70s love story, I have featured there that our audience can get there for only 99 cents. Talk to us about when you knew that was going to be a part of your life, Dr. Velma, that you were going to use the gift of writing to talk about love, relationships, and faith.
I knew when my daughters and I had our conversation. I mean, I have two registered nurses. One daughter was on her way to college. The other daughter had a failed marriage, and we were having these in-depth conversations. And they're both believers. They wanted to know, what does God have to say about these relationships and men, and why are they so slow? That was the initial question. Mom, why are they so slow? And I said, they're not slow, they're asleep. Their eyes are closed to anyone. When it's too early, too soon, it's not the right time, their eyes are closed because they're probably busy building something that they should be building at that time in their lives. And when the time comes, their
Mm,
eyes will open. And so they were the ones that encouraged me, look, Mom, you really need to write this down, because the things you're talking about, we're telling our friends. Because when they asked me that question, I knew I could not just give them some of those old scriptures that we tend to float around and repeat. I said, let me dig a little deeper and make sure I really understand what God's intentions were when He created the first man and woman and married them. And so in doing so, it opened my eyes to more. And I said, wow, this is the stuff that isn't being taught anymore. And it's something that others need to know. And so with the urging of my daughters, I wrote that first book. And from there, I knew that that was what I should be doing.
I want to take a moment, Dr. Bellman, and thank Miss Queenie for joining us over there on the Amazon Live side. Appreciate you being with us, Miss Queenie, and all the great work that you're doing over there as well. And so that leads us to, I think, a series of things then, Dr. Bellman, because I think a lot of times things do start with a spark. So would you say that the conversation and that need to know by your daughter was that spark for you to know, since this wasn't something that was out there, it's up to me to bring that out?
Yeah, it was in that moment, because when my daughter married her first husband, my husband and I both knew he was not the right one. It was up to her to try to find that and determine that. There's only so much you can say to an individual. And I think you and I talked about it before. I just kind of got tired of when my husband and I would provide premarital counseling, for instance. It's you can identify the problems that the couple is having, but it's almost as if they're hoping that we will help them fix it. When you're sitting there knowing this problem will never be fixed, it's just going to get worse, and this is the wrong person. And so
Yeah.
with my daughter's urging, I knew it was something that needed to be talked about more. And so our first book, we all agreed, my husband, my daughters, we all agreed we would be vulnerable and open so that people will see a true story, see real conversations and what we had at that time. But with this new book, I wanted to take the approach of storytelling, very similar to what Jesus did when He told His parables. He never really approached a person with, you really need to stop doing what you're doing right now. He never had that kind of approach. He always presented something that was common and item or animal that people recognize, and He taught them that way. And then underneath that, He had something profound for them to learn. And so that's how the catch was born. I found that I wanted to make sure that I can present these stories in a way that even a person who may not be a believer would capture their attention, and they would want to see and look and want to know more.
I'm glad you said that, because going back to the teachings of Jesus, of course, he was teaching a lot of times to unbelievers. So, of course,
Yeah.
he used those illustrations again that were practical for them in their times, for sure. Which leads us to, like you said, to the catch no one wants. So there we meet Veronica Dawson, and in this particular book, and then of course the connection with the nonfiction book, Homework Basket. Did you know automatically? I don't think I've asked you this question, Dr. Velma, in our conversations previously. Did you know automatically that a novel was the way you wanted to be able to initially address these things, or how did you decide that you wanted to do this, talk about the truth of love, relationships, and faith in
Yeah.
a novel?
Well, there's a side of the Christian community that's not warm and fuzzy about fiction. They're just not.
Yeah,
There's a side that if it's not nonfiction, it's not biblical. And I think that's not true. Because
right.
again, when you're looking at what Jesus did, I was reading about the woman at the well today. He was just having a conversation, and he said, well, where's your husband? And she said, well, I don't have a husband. And he said, yeah, you're right, because you've had five. He just simply had conversation. And that's what I hope that this book would do. I
Yeah,
wanted it to be a contemporary fiction for that reason. I want
yeah,
people to find, not to entertain them, but I want them to enjoy the stories, but at the same time, find something a little more deeper in it. And it was something you said to me earlier, and it made me think about something my mother said. She said, you can fall in love with a dog if you hang around it long enough, which
Wow.
means that attraction is not it. Attraction does not necessarily tell you, oh yeah, this is the one. That's not it. And so what I'm talking about in the book and in the stories, before you get to that point, you need to know that you're ready, first of all, and you need to know what you're going to be given or contributing to that relationship before you get out there. And
Yeah.
so that you're not attracting the wrong thing or the wrong person.
Yeah, such a great point, and I love that you mentioned that. I want to say for those who are just tuning in, either on the Amazon Live side or the other broadcast, you're watching Cyrus Webb Presents today, having a great conversation already with Dr. Velma Bagby. We're discussing not only her writing journey, but how she's been able to discuss love and relationships and faith, especially now in her two new books, The Catch No One Wants, the novel that I'm holding here. But also, I'm going to go ahead and highlight Dr. Velma, the nonfiction that is here on the side of me here. There we go. The Catch No One Wants, a homework basket. So we were introduced to the homework basket in the novel. But talk to us about what it's been like for you, because part of what you've been doing that I think you've been doing very well with the marketing of this has been talking about what other people are saying about the different types of fish and
Yes.
sharing that on social. What has that been like for you to have people see themselves in this topic of the Catch No One Wants, Dr. Bell?
I thought it was hilarious. It really blessed me to hear not just the readers, but the hosts who have been interviewing me on some of the other podcasts to say, I dated all four of these guys. And so for it to be that relatable, you want it
Yeah.
and you hope it will be relatable. But to hear someone say, I related to the catfish, I understand, I met a sturgeon, all that salmon was something else, all of that. It was really validating for me.
Yeah. And so you brought up the elephant in the room, and that's that, and we'll kind of speak broadly, but it's true what you said. There are some people that don't like fiction, and some of those people include people of faith. But so I guess a part of this too is about the courage to do it anyways. You're being a person of faith. Did you just feel like the person who was supposed to get this book, Dr. Velma, would get it and get the message?
That was exactly right. In the same vein that Jesus only talked about he told the stories to the people he wanted to hear those stories. He wasn't down at the church telling the stories. He was among the people having just
Yeah.
normal conversations. And that's what I hoped this book would do as well, is to have normal stories, normal conversations. And in the years that I have counseled with single women, I mean, none of those stories were difficult to develop. Just weren't, because I heard it over and over and over again. From the catfish to the Reverend Stevie Sturgeon. I was a young girl watching one of the ministers and wondered who was he dating next. I was just a
Wow.
teenager and I'm going, well, okay, what's going on? So those kind of stories are not unusual at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it's not, and it's a conversation that needs to be had. I brought up Veronica, the main character of the
Mhm.
novel *The Catch No One Wants*. Let's talk about that for those who may be new to us here. And it seems like with every conversation, Dr. Velma, we've been having, where I'm able to hear from someone new that's just coming into this, which is what is great about the movement that you're building, and we've talked about that.
Awesome. Mhm.
So I think for Veronica, I think there is. Let me before I go into Veronica. You just said something that I want to go back to because you.
Okay.
Because if I don't, I'm getting older, Dr. Velma. I'll forget it.
Me
uh,
too.
Ro, appreciate you following us over there on the Amazon live side. Appreciate the follow over there, Ro. And Wendy, hello to you over here on the Facebook side. Appreciate you being with us. You said something interesting, and I think for people who are used to reading fiction, that may have made their ears perk up as well. And I thought I filed it, and I said, you know what, Cyrus, you better pull that file because you may not come back. You said you didn't mean to entertain with this, though. Talk to us about that, because you did discuss these topics in a novel. Talk to us about how you see this book as far as the reader and who the right reader for this book is.
The right reader for this book is any anyone, really, anyone
Okay.
interested in the topic of dating for marriage, anyone. I've
Gotcha.
had from the grandmas to the aunties to the single women who've come from broken relationships to single women who have never had a relationship. I mean, it's been the gamut because even the grandma can read it and share it with somebody that she knows that really needs it. There was
Yeah.
one comment, I think, on Amazon where the person said she has to get a second book because she has a coworker dating a catfish. So she immediately identified what group that guy fits into. And
Yeah.
so it's for anyone, even though my intention was for those interested in dating for marriage, it's for anyone because it's not only it's not only interesting, but it provides them with something that they need in their dating life. You
Yeah.
asked me a question about something you something you said in the beginning about entertaining. I did
Yeah.
not. I hear people make the comment that they love fictional books that entertain. That
Mhm.
wasn't my goal. I wasn't trying to
Gotcha.
write a book to entertain anyone. I wanted it to
Gotcha.
be interesting. I wanted the
Gotcha.
stories to resonate, but I did not want it to be a novel that would just entertain you. I wanted people to take
Mhm.
away something from the
Gotcha.
messages and the stories.
Got it. And you know what? I'm glad you said it that way because that there definitely is a distinction, right? Because there are some things that entertain us that we get nothing from. They're
Hmm.
just good to fill the time, versus some things that may be entertaining, but there's still something that you resonate with. Me and my friends talk about me all the time, Dr. Velma. I pull something out of everything. I mean, I pull less because I think the characters I think about, like I did with this book, characters are things that we can relate to. I want to mention what Rose says over on the Amazon Live side, Dr. Velma. Rose
Hmm.
says, yes, as a Christian fiction author, I agree. There are those who don't think that fictional stories can impact the Christian experience. And I think that's why
Yeah.
books like this are so important. And I also think it's a reason why people have to be very careful to put everyone in a box, right? Because, I mean, I think, again, like you mentioned, going back to Jesus, Jesus was not preaching to the quote unquote, religious people of his
No.
day.
No.
He was preaching and giving these examples to the people, and I think that's the thing. I mean, it's for the people to be able to get these lessons from. Ro, I
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing that. So now I can get to Veronica since I
Oh,
mentioned that
okay.
because I was thinking, okay, well, am I going to remember this? Or you may not remember it, so go ahead and bring it up. But with Veronica, Veronica is someone, and I think there will be a debate about this. And I'm curious as to you, as the author, what you've been hearing. Do have you found that readers, for the most part, think Veronica is a good person? Because
Yes.
definitely her father Grayson lets her know she has her faults too. But has the consensus been that she's looked at as a good person?
Absolutely. Everyone has said that about Veronica. She's just having
Okay.
difficulties in their dating life, but overall, she's a good person. She's
Yeah.
successful. She set out to accomplish her goals, and she did. She got her college degree. She's doing well in her career. So everything about her walk has been great. It's just her choice in men hasn't been the best.
Yeah. Yeah. And the conversations you've been having to kind of tie it into the homework basket here, Dr. Bell, talk to us about what it's been like for you to see people is to get the relationship when it comes to um, the importance of having wisdom when it comes to dating, but
Yeah.
also understanding the purpose of dating, which is something that we don't see in the world today. That there is a
No.
purpose for being with someone, not just to pass the
No.
time. What has that been like for you to see the way people are having those conversations?
Well, when I did my research for the very first book, and when I really got into um, some deeper research about the whole idea around marriage and God's purpose in it all. And I found out that we really only practice a dating process that's only a couple of 100 years old. So what we see in the world today is just a process that's just a couple of years, 100 years old. But the one that
Wow.
God has rolled out for us is thousands of years old. And I
Right.
remember telling you about the fact that, he says he's given us the keys to the kingdom, but our believers aren't using their keys. First of all, you got to
Yeah.
know what key unlocks what particular door. And so
Right.
we have a bunch of keys, but we don't know how to use them. And I said, this is one way that we can at least go back and discover what those keys are and learn to apply them in our lives. So that's where the wisdom will come from, because wisdom only comes from God by definition. It comes
Yeah.
from Him.
Yeah. Wendy, thank you for the comment. Wendy on Facebook says Veronica just needs a little guidance. Yeah,
Mhm.
Wendy, don't we all, right? I mean, I think you know it, and that, and I have my friends will say there's a lot of Grayson in me. Grayson is a person who is loving, but also delivers tough love. My
Mhm.
family and friends both say that about me. I'm a loving person, but if you want someone to just tell you everything's okay, I'm not the person to come to. That's not my way. I, like Grayson, have had to learn to season my words, uh, so that And so, talk about that for Grayson, because Grayson is not only coming from a place of a father, he's coming from a place of faith too. And no one wants to see their child out there drowning in trouble,
No,
right?
no.
What was it like for you to kind of give Grayson this ability of being able to be a loving father, but also telling it like it was?
Yeah, we forget to show grace to each other. We just
Yeah,
forget. I mean, we
yeah,
receive the grace from God, but we forget to show each other grace. And I
yeah,
think that's what I tried to build into Grayson's walk. And Grayson is very much my husband. His personality and his whole demeanor, all of that is my husband's personality. I mean, he had to learn um, to really kind of cushion it over time, especially raising girls.
yeah,
And I think we talked about this once before. I had to remind him and nudge, okay, don't forget, these are girls, these are girls. And their hearts are fragile. You're the first man in their lives. Remember what you're teaching. I would help and inspire him. But yeah, he doesn't. I used to say that there's no gray area for my husband. It's either black or white. If he's
yeah,
going to tell you the truth, it's going to be the truth. He's not going to try to sugarcoat it. He's just going to tell you the truth. And so
yeah,
Grayson is that type of personality, but in dealing with his daughter Veronica, he had to show her a little grace in that
yeah,
process. We again, going back to what Jesus would do as well. He would not
yeah.
come down hard on a person who's
Right,
struggling. He
right,
always, like the woman at the well I was reading about today, he always he didn't say, why are you here? Why did you have five husbands and the one that you're with right now is not your husband? He
that's
didn't
her
do that.
husband.
He didn't do that.
Right,
And so he
right.
shows grace, and we should do the same with each other. And that's what Grayson's personality is like. He had to show her grace. She's a good person. She's accomplished all she set out to do, and she just needed a little guidance, like Miss Wendy said.
Yeah. And Tamika, hello to you. Good to see you over there on the Facebook side as well. Wendy says, I really liked Grayson's approach as well. And I think that's it. I think all of these characters are relatable. And I think either, there'll be men and women
Mm-hmm.
who I think can see themselves in both sometimes, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
like some of these daughters who have just their mothers in their lives, and the mother trying to be that person that tell it like it is, but also being loving. But also, there's some of us guys that are not dating correctly, and we need that
Mm-hmm.
same that same wisdom coming at us. There is one thing I wanted to point out from the homework basket, and again, for
Mm-hmm.
those who have not gotten them, definitely both of them are available on Amazon. The Kindle edition of the homework basket, you can get it there for $5 right now. That's what I have, the print edition though, and then the Kindle edition of the Catch No One Wants you can get for $4.99, but also the print edition is available there on Amazon too. But I wanted to bring out one thing from the homework basket because I love this one point, and you bring it up on page 47 of the homework basket, Dr. Velma.
Uh-huh.
What can you learn about a fool?
Ooh.
And and I think and the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because unfortunately it ties in perfectly with what you mentioned in the book. But I want to read this one paragraph. You wrote in
Mm-hmm.
the book, Grayson addressed both the men and women, and that's why I brought it up because we were just talking about men and women about this topic because a few of the women in the stories fit the definition, especially the women
Yeah,
who ignored wise counsel. By definition, a person who ignores wise guidance, counsel, is a fool.
that's
I
right.
want to talk about that because that is just the realness of it too.
Mm-hmm.
There is the idea of Jesus teaching in love, but we also know there are people, as the scripture said, that didn't get the sense of it. or they heard it and like, okay, well, no, I don't want to do that. Just like the
Mm-hmm.
rich young ruler, right? Who
Yep.
he didn't know what he had to do to get life, and then when Jesus told him, he's like, oh well,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about that. I
Yeah.
mean, so talk to us about the danger there, though, Dr. Velma, of saying we want better but not doing better.
There is the danger. You just said it right there. There is a danger in being that way, including
Yeah,
the people who reject wisdom. God talks
yeah,
about those who reject it, who don't want it.
yeah,
That's the fool. And when you
yeah,
look at some of these scriptures, oh my goodness, it was amazing when I did this research. I'm going, wow, there's over 60 scriptures. There must be a reason why there's
yeah.
over 60 scriptures talking about this one topic,
Right,
that we have to be very aware. And so
right.
that's just simply the bottom line, what you just said. To avoid it, to reject it, is the definition of a fool. And so why would we waste our time with someone who avoids wise counsel, who doesn't
Yeah,
want to hear uh,
yeah.
what's the better way, what's the better route? And so that's not the group that this book is intended for.
Exactly. And it's so funny. I never thought about that topic either until I started thinking about some of the scriptures too that talk about a fool, Dr. Velma, especially those who do, that they reject the wise counsel, but also are only into their own thinking, right? I
Yeah,
mean, and I think that's another thing we have to be so careful about. And that's why I love the fact that we were able to touch about this. That's why I say every conversation has been different here with you, because that's why I think it's so good that we mentioned about this is not about entertaining people. It really is getting people to see themselves and to be able to see their circumstances. And then there's a choice that can be made, right? And
yeah,
there's a choice that can be made. Okay, I see this, I know this, and then what am I going to do about it at this point?
right.
And so I think that is the big thing. So both books are available through Amazon. Our audience knows that on the Amazon Live side. You all can click below to be able to get these books as well as the others by Dr. Velma. I definitely want you all to do that. But Dr. Velma, what as you're continuing to have these conversations, you continue to do this work, what is your hope that the Catch No One Wants does in people who are either one, looking for a mate, or two, in a situation where they're wondering about the choice they made?
In one of our conversations, we talked about the fact that how women give their power away, and they give it away by not really applying wisdom when they're dating. And so they accept behavior that's not okay. And so I hope what this will do would be to help women to take back that power. The power is basically this: you have to know who you are, that you are the prize. You have to know your value and your worth, but you have to know that. No one can tell you that or teach you that. You have to embrace that yourself. You have to know who God says you are and who you are to be for the man. You are his crown. You are his jewel. More than rubies. If you can't embrace that part of you, then that person is going to have difficulties in their dating life, because they're going to accept behavior that's less than what their value says they should receive. And so I think that's what I hope that women will take away from this book. I remember there was something else that I wanted to share with you, and that was I
Sure.
was on Facebook and someone said, "Is it old school? Is it old school for you to fix your husband's plate?" And I thought, what is the definition of old school? Does old school mean you no longer do it? And
Yeah.
so I almost did not write a response. I said, no, I have to. I wrote my response and I said, definition of old school, and kind of question mark in a sense. And I said, look, it really is about love. It has nothing to do with whether it's old school or new school. Oh, and I said, old school still works 48 years in to my blessed marriage. I said, yes, I do fix my husband's plate, but he fixes my bath water. He does the dishes. He cleans out my car. And I went down the list of a lot of things he does for me, he doesn't have to do. And so for someone to say that this is old school, to me, lacks wisdom. Wisdom says, and I said at the end, I said in old school, we just make sure that as a couple, we're at 100%. Doesn't matter what percentage we each give in a given moment, because there are moments when I'm not feeling well, he's giving 95. As long as a couple, it equals 100%, then it's good. That's old school. So I said it's about love, not about what they were trying to make it to be. And I said it's
Right.
about love. And love says, as a couple, let's make it 100%. It doesn't matter what percentage we're each given.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you brought that up. Such a great point about how life has changed, how the world has changed, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's things are definitely evolved, not necessarily all in the right direction.
Right.
And Tamika says, "Yes, ma'am, you were speaking volumes, Dr. Velma." I mean that is, but you know what? This is that's why these conversations are so important. There, featuring Veronica and Grayson. You all can see it there on the Amazon side. Also, of course, you have the nonfiction, The Catch No One Wants, as well. Make sure you guys pick it up too, as well as the other by Dr. Velma. Again, you'll see them in the carousel there on the Amazon side. Dr. Velma, how can they stay connected with you?
I'm available on all social media. So Instagram, my profile page on Facebook, drvelma.com on my webpage. I'm on LinkedIn, recently joined YouTube, and also I'm on Twitter.
All right. So make sure you guys are skip with Dr. Velma. Dr. Velma, a pleasure as always to have you on. I'm really glad that you could be back with us and looking forward to our next chat together.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for coming in.
Definitely. And we thank you all for watching another great segment of Cyrus Webb Presents here on Amazon Live. Until next time, you all make it a great one. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.